You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick, natural resource specialist at the Oxford Club. His website, investmentu.com, U being the letter U. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Not a lot of people talking about copper right now, but you think we should be talking about it. Why?
Well, yes, we have really seen a reversal in the copper market, which that metal was under the same pressure that pretty much every commodity is lately, which is too much supply, not enough demand. And people were really worried about China. I mean, it looks like China is slowing down. China is a huge user of copper in the world. So we really saw the price of copper go down, I'd say around 17% this year, but it was also at like a 6-year low. I mean, it was really low. But then 3 things happened. Freeport, which is a big copper producer. It has like 7 copper mines in the U.S. It also has that huge one in Indonesia called Grasberg. They really cut back on what they are going to spend to mine copper in the next year. They actually closed one of their mines temporarily. And also cut back the crews at a whole bunch of their mines. So they're shaving like 1,000 people from the payroll. And so they're really lowering the amount of copper they are going to produce. Then another company, which is over in Britain, closed down 3 African mines. And that's going to take about 400,000 metric tons of like copper off the global market while those things are closed for 18 months. And they did it for the same reason, which is that, prices are too low. They thought they would give things a break. And so, everybody said, that actually kind of makes sense. That was actually appreciated by a lot of people in the industry. And then we got news out of China, and everyone had been expecting terrible news out of China. But then China's monthly copper imports in August went up 4% over a year when everyone was expecting it to go down. So we've had this 1, 2, 3 of like things happening here. And so this has really changed the way people are looking at the copper market now. And so people were really calling for a huge surplus, not only this year, but also next year. And now that has really lowered down, and some analysts are actually calling for not enough copper to actually meet demand. So there might be it's hard to say. Because there's so many potential things in play, but there actually might be a shortage of mine supply next year. We'll just have to see how that goes. But so that's an example of what can happen in a commodity when prices get low enough that we start to see the producers actually start to shut in production. This is what people are hoping will happen in oil. This is what people are hoping will happen in gold. So what's happening in copper, we are starting to see that shift now. We are starting to see prices rise off the bottom, and so that's really what we need to see in the other commodities as well.
What about zinc? I heard the 3 biggest zinc mines in the world are going to be shutting down very shortly. What's that going to do to the price of something that's used in every battery?
I have heard a lot of chatter about that as well. Where are we going to get new zinc? We aren't finding good zinc deposits. There is zinc around. It is a base metal, but not in like a deposit that you can really mine. And so that's a question that's been on people's minds too. I am glad you brought that up because this is how commodities always go, right? There's always a real shortage. So all these people run out and they find new deposits and they build mines and all that stuff. And then there's a surplus, and then all the producers are moaning and crying about, oh my God, what are we going to do? We have too much surplus, and the price goes way back down. So nobody invests in this stuff anymore. And then it comes around, and so now we're seeing it in copper. Though I will have to say, we'll have to see what those miners do when prices start to go back up. Will those miners that have shut down mines start to bring those mines back on? But zinc is an interesting thing because there really aren't new mines that can be brought on quickly for zinc right now. So that's an interesting point you bring up because that's another market people should really watch right now.
Right. And I know the town of Hay River was a big zinc lead mining place up in the Northwest Territories. Then, of course, it played out. Are we going to see people revisiting old mines and taking a look at, can we find new, more efficient ways of extraction to bring back some of these older places? They may not be as productive as they once were, but they probably still do have deposits around the original one.
Well, yeah, that's what they say. When you are looking for a metal, you should look where it's been found before. I mean, and so brownfields, those are often the best places to look because new technology comes along. It just makes it, much easier to actually pull the stuff out of the ground or maybe refine it or just something like that. So yeah, I mean, we will see those old deposits revisited. Maybe some was missed last time. And so, that's the kind of thing we will probably see. The thing about zinc is, or any metal really, it's not easy to bring a new mine online. In fact, the time to bring new mines online from a discovery to actual production just seems to be getting longer and longer and longer. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with zinc. Maybe there's a big store pile somewhere that someone can bring to the market. Maybe they'll increase recycling of zinc. I don't know, but we could be looking at a real supply squeeze there. And so thanks very much for bringing that up.
Well, there are new battery ads that say we are now recycling batteries. 4% of our new batteries are recycling the old battery part. Maybe they're going to have to be more efficient with that.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just have to see how that goes.
Because I always thought it was a huge waste to throw them out and see them disappear into a landfill where it's going to leach into the nearest river.
Me too. Isn't that terrible? Yeah, you can recycle that stuff. You certainly should.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after the break.
Unbelievable harmonies, spectacular performance, Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel in Oliver, October 2nd, in Kelowna, October 3rd. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com. More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist at the Oxford Club. Sean, oil is such a huge topic in Canada. The federal government, the provincial governments in a lot of places rely on the revenue from it. What is going to happen with the price of oil?
Well, we've actually seen some producers in Canada start to shut things in. Surprisingly, or I guess not surprisingly, depending on what you know about this stuff, not the big oil sands producers, because most of their investment in those things is up front. So they'll just keep running anyway, But other smaller producers, not oil sands, they have actually started to shut some things in the U.S. oil shale. Some areas are actually cheap to produce, so we're actually seeing more drilling there. Others aren't, so we're seeing that start to actually kind of not have so much production there. But two interesting things are happening in oil right now. One is that Saudi Arabia has actually maintained its market share during this recent oil price crunch and all that stuff. And that's very interesting because the last time there was one, and so OPEC said, we have to cut back, and everybody said, okay, we'll cut back. Saudi Arabia, you lead the way. Saudi Arabia cut back and everybody else cheated. So Saudi Arabia lost its market share quite badly, and they've never forgotten that lesson. And so this time, this is why the Saudis refuse to cut. And this is why they are maintaining market share. And this is why there is such a surplus of oil in the world right now. It isn't just the Saudis, of course. I mean, it's pretty much everybody now. But the fact that they refuse to lead OPEC in actually cutting back production, because the Saudis got stabbed in the back last time. I mean, that could actually signal the end of OPEC at some point, because a cartel only functions when it actually serves a useful purpose. And if it's really not doing anything, what's the point of having it? The other interesting thing going on is that China is about to launch its own benchmark crude oil. So it will have a crude oil that it prices, and so it will trade that in and out of its country and all that stuff. Now, China's such a huge market for crude oil, that actually makes sense. They also produce crude oil, but they just use much more than they produce. So that will be interesting because many people think that China is really working on improving its place in the world. It really wants to become a world power, and one of the steps to do that will be to have its own benchmark crude oil. And so that's a very interesting thing that is happening there. And also something that probably won't be of much comfort to my Canadian friends, but I will tell you that now the U.S. government says that people in the United States can expect to pay $2 per gallon for gasoline by Christmas or earlier. And I know that my wife just paid $2.09 today. Now, I know you guys have much higher taxes and all that stuff, but what's happening is they are anticipating a flood of oil coming on from Iran. When those sanctions are lifted, when that happens, plenty of oil that they have in tankers right now will be brought to market, and also Iran will really work on pumping a lot more oil and shipping that off to market. And so as that enters the global market, we will start to see more pressure on oil prices headed downward. I don't know what prices up in Canada will go to, but I can tell you here in the United States, $2 per gallon is pretty darn cheap. And so you're going to see more people buying, say, vehicles that use a lot of gas because they really aren't going to care so much about it. And so that's a really interesting thing to have happen as well.
Yeah, one phenomena, though, with so many people buying SUVs now, the parking spaces in Vancouver were shrunk down because I said everybody's using smaller cars. Well, now you can't squeeze into a parking space, and it's happening in parkades where people's doors are being battered to death by larger vehicles.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's horrible.
Well,
but, you know what? We see the same thing right now. And I actually have a small car because I actually purchased that in mind of handing it along to my kid who is now old enough and really responsible, and also has all these extra school, things that she has to do. It's actually good for her to have a car now. So that's great. I'll just pass it on to her. So now I'm car shopping. And I have to tell you, there is the urge that, well, gas is cheap. I might as well just get a bigger car, right? And so imagine this happening to everybody across the continent. This is why gasoline use in the United States is up 4.9% year over year. Now, they say one of the cures for low prices is low prices, right? Maybe gasoline use and that kind of thing will head up enough that we'll actually start to see prices go higher again. I mean, because there's only so much refinery capacity. And so maybe that will happen, but I think that's a very interesting thing to have going on. I love that anecdote about parking spaces in Toronto. Down in Florida, we don't worry so much. We are really more spread out, but I can see how in certainly a place where you have premium parking, there just isn't that much. That can be a real problem.
Well, Vancouver is squeezed in by the ocean and the mountains and the U.S. border.
Right, exactly.
So that's why real estate here is so expensive. There isn't a lot of it to buy.
That is going to be a little tight. I am not meaning to laugh at your problems, but it's just kind of a funny thing to have happen after years and years where we were told that oil was going to run out, and now the other thing is happening.
Yeah. Well, and also I've been told every time there's a huge problem, humans are so good at solving it if there's enough pressure.
Yeah, I certainly hope that happens with a lot of our problems. We do have some things that seem really big. When I look at the oceans now, for example, that are just filled with junk and warming up, there has to be some kind of technological solution to that as well. And I think one of the things we have to do as investors is find those companies that will actually provide those solutions and start investing in them and hopefully make a lot of money that way.
Well, apparently you can collect waste plastic from the ocean and turn it into oil.
I've heard that, but I don't think it's actually feasible on an economic sense yet. But, down the road, maybe it will be.
Maybe we'll have to if we want to have any open ocean left.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Is there any other commodity that might be coming online? I know, what about lithium? We need it for all these efficient batteries. Is there enough lithium to go around for the big demand?
Well, that was something people were really worried about, but I think new suppliers came on in South America and stuff because, especially with these new batteries they have, which are going to be used for home solar, so you can actually store the power at night and stuff like that. they're going to be using a lot of lithium, especially at that new factory that they're building in like Nevada and like stuff like that. So that's another thing that, I mean, seemed like we were going to have a shortage. The new supply came online, but if the demand for that really ramps up, I mean, who can say? So I would keep my eye on that, but I am a big fan of solar. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening there, as a matter of fact, right now. There's a new company down in Australia that has finally commercially has this like new solar stuff you can actually print out of a printer. Now, that has been done in like universities and stuff, but it wasn't done commercially yet. Now these guys have, you know, solar cells you can print out of a printer. You can just put them on the walls of your house and, you know, and it's really amazing. Of course, they have to make those more efficient. I think they're only about 8% efficient right now. But, you know, that's good. Once this stuff starts to happen, we will see a whole new kind of energy source really come in there. And so I think just the future's wide open for that. But as you said, we'll need more lithium. We'll need the stuff to actually store the energy once we make it. And so that will be a very important thing that people will be able to invest in the future.
And I'm wondering why Alberta, with all their oil resources, how come they're not making plastic? Every 3D printer in the world needs plastic.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, that's a good question, too. I don't know the answer to that because I really haven't researched that much. And I'm sorry if you can hear the sirens in the background. I'm in a hotel room in Baltimore right now. I'm always traveling. Yeah, I mean, there's really lots of opportunities there. But one nice thing about the oil crunch is that maybe Alberta will start to look for other things to do. I mean, they've been so focused on oil, right, for like so long. But often innovation comes not because you want to, but because you have to. There are economic forces that really come into play. And if oil isn't the thing that's going to keep Alberta humming along, maybe they'll look into other things they can do. And so, yeah, certainly supplying things to 3D printers and like stuff like that, there's a lot of potential there.
Well, there's a lot of ranchers in Alberta. Maybe they have to start making cowboy movies again.
That would be great.
Sean, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks very much. I enjoyed it.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist at the Oxford Club. His website, investmentu.com, U being the letter U. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. If you have any questions for Sean, you can also forward them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Gondon.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.